Hello, my name is Nicholas Sanderson. I'm a student at Herzing University. I'm here to talk to you today about some of the negative perceptions against law enforcement throughout the nation currently, and some of the effects of this negative perception, as well as what causes it and what we can do to fix it. So, saying that, I'm going to start off with what are some of the real effects of this negative perception against law enforcement. I'm going to give you one of the most current recent examples. Was located in New York City. There was two men by the name of Officer Liu and Officer Ramos. Both these men were of different cultures, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. One common trait that they did share is they both decided to take an oath to serve the men and women of New York City as New York City police officers. And for this reason and this reason alone, they both died. They were killed ambushed by an individual who expressed animosity and a strong hatred and resentment towards law enforcement officers. And this animosity came as a result of two recent critical police incidents in Ferguson, Missouri, and also right there in New York City. Now, both these men had absolutely nothing to do with this incident. However, they were targeted and they were killed because of their association with law enforcement. Now, being that they had nothing to do with these incidents whatsoever, there's also been many other random attacks and ambushes on law enforcement throughout the U.S. And it's my feeling and the feeling of many others that these attacks will continue as long as this anti-law enforcement sentiment is given some form of safe haven in this country and has some form of acceptance, because these individuals will always find a sort of a protection with these groups and these individuals, some form of acceptance. So, saying that, what causes negative perception against law enforcement? There's three things I'd like to touch on. The first one would obviously be the news media. Now, it doesn't take much to turn on your TV and look at your common news channel to find some type of story about police misconduct or any type of critical police incident. It's a big topic in the news. Everybody wants to know about the newest crime wave or something of that nature. And you have to remember that news media stations, their biggest goal is to try and obtain this news and get it out to the public in the quickest way possible. This often results in the broadcasting of incomplete stories. They don't have all the facts, or they also will easily put out information of a biased nature. They're trying to get their viewers or listeners to believe, and it easily works, whatever their form of how they want you to feel that incident is like. And another thing is irresponsible comments made by public officials. This is a big one too. When we see our politicians or our public figures, we put a lot of trust into these individuals, and what they have to say is usually very important, and it's very influenceable to people in the public. And two common examples I'd like to talk about would be, first and foremost, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City. He made several comments, one of which I'll touch on, and one of the most important ones would be following the Eric Garner incident. He decided to make comments at a press release where he talked about how he had to train his son on how to interact with police officers due to his mixed race, because he was afraid of his son's safety. Now, this comment had absolutely no relevance to the situation involving Eric Garner whatsoever, and was made only what one can assume was a way to try and gain rapport with the public. And in essence, by making the statement that he did, all he essentially did was shut out the entire New York City Police Department against him, and making them feel just completely left out. This is a person that should be supporting them and basically encouraging professionalism, where in a way he was insulting them. Another individual that did the same thing was Eric Holder. This individual is, or was, the Attorney General for the Department of Justice. This is a high power position. During the incident in Ferguson recently, in Ferguson, Missouri, he made the baseless comment about being stopped in an unnamed city for a traffic stop by an unnamed agency, and he claimed to have been treated he claimed to be treated harshly due mainly to the color of his skin, and the only way he was able to turn the table for him was to tell him what his position was. Now, of course, this also has little to no relevance whether or not it's even true to begin with, to that current situation. But this comment was once again made in a way to try and build rapport with the community, seemingly by turning animosity towards law enforcement in general. And the third thing I would say is another cause of negative perception against law enforcement is just a general lack of understanding of tactics and criminal law. Often the average person only has the opportunity to interact with law enforcement, let's say if they call 911, which is very rare for the average person, or when they're stopped for a traffic violation or anything of that nature. Now this is the only time that interaction is ever made with law enforcement outside of what they view in the news or what they see on television in the movies. And that's another thing, that's a whole other topic, but that's also negative for law enforcement too, because people see these things and this is the only thing they see that involves law enforcement. They believe that this information is factual or this is actually how things are done. Now lastly, I want to talk about what we can do to fix the negative perceptions of law enforcement. A little known fact, I did some researching, that studies conducted by Cato's Institute of National Police Misconduct Reporting confirmed that statistically only 1% of all police officers engage in some type of misconduct. Obviously I don't have to sit here and tell you that 1% is a very small number, especially in comparison to what the common perception probably is throughout the United States. It's important that the public is educated in making educated decisions on things and having educated opinions rather than forming a quick opinion based off of what they see on the news or an incomplete story or someone's comments because of an experience that they've had before in the past. Changing the image of law enforcement begins with the administration. I'm going to say it starts right here within the department. These law enforcement administrators, these chiefs of police, they have a dual role. They have to interface with the community. They have to keep the community happy and establish that trust and that bond between community and a law enforcement agency. They also have another role where they are to support their law enforcement officers. They need to hold a high bar of standards for these officers, but in return, if giving them the training that they need to get the job done successfully and stand behind them when they do eventually face these critical incidents. And finally, we need to work together as a team for a collective goal of defeating violent crime in the community. Law enforcement can't do it by themselves. Obviously, the community can't do it by themselves. It's a collaborative effort, and both entities need to work together. Citizen police academies or demonstrations where members of the community can see the realities of being a police officer and the daily incidents they may face will be a very important factor in educating the public. It's important for them to understand why we do the things that we do and how, so that the misunderstanding is cleared up to some degree. Integration with the community by officers that work that area is also important to build and strengthen these bonds. And that's pretty much all I've got. I hope you enjoyed my speech, and I hope if anything you get out of it that you can also learn to make some better educated opinions on law enforcement and their daily operations, and that we can work together to start to strengthen these bonds between law enforcement and the community for a better future. Thank you.